All right. So I'm just going to test the audio real quick. So for anyone who's kind of hanging out with us today, could you verify that you can hear my mic? Or more importantly, you can hear me, not specifically my microphone. Just want to make sure everything's connected. It looks like it's working, but I always got to double check before we get too far in here. Perfect. Let's rock and roll. All right. So how's everybody doing today? Uh, do appreciate everybody being kind of patient here and flexible. I know from the last couple of weeks, due to the holidays, we moved that live session. Then week 2, I had to push this one out an hour. Uh, so definitely appreciate everybody being kind of open. But maybe it actually worked out for the better, and some other people are able to attend because it's pushed an hour later, able to get home from work. All right, so I'll show you basically what we're going to cover today. And I was almost going to start talking about the Maya projects. I'm still trying to actually get through all the grades and submissions for 1.3. I'm getting there, but what we're going to do is maybe run through the 2.1 stuff really quickly because I want to spend more time on 2.2 and 2.3. So in week 2, we're just going to open all these guys up. All right, so inside here, we've got our project assets. Actually, this. Oh, I might have actually something in the wrong folder. Oh, I can see something I need to fix already. Okay, I have the zip file in the wrong activity. I'll fix that later. So this is actually supposed to be in 2.2. I'll move that tonight, but 2.1 is going to be all about creating Maya projects. Okay, so basically us just going in there, making the project folder structure. I'm going to do it really quickly with you guys. I know a lot of you have already turned this in, possibly, so we'll kind of go through it really quickly. Now, if you have turned it in and I haven't graded it yet, and you realize by going through this that it's what you did is a little different, you can definitely submit a revision. The whole Maya project folder thing is a little confusing because it's not really the same as you opening a file in Photoshop or typically the way you'd make folders on your computer where you just kind of make your own custom folders and put files wherever you want. The My Project folder structure is very particular about how you set it up. There's definitely a right answer for this. So we're just trying to verify that you get this guy here for all 3 projects, character, vehicle, and environment. I should also see all these folders, and there's going to be a couple files in the folders once we get to that point. I actually have the screenshot incorrect over here. It should be the character file, the original one from 1.3, and character cam when you were done for 1.3. Those should be in here, not that challenge. The challenge is actually something you're doing in 2.2. So I have a few things I got to fix here. So let's start with that, and then I'm going to spend a bit more time with you near the end going over 2.2. This one's actually kind of fun because we're going to be doing like some bringing in some new props, doing some backgrounds, making display layers. I'll talk about groups, which are really cool. So everything we're doing in this project and this one, we're basically just prepping things for week 3 because in week 3 you guys are finally going to be making your first renders, your first digital images. You're going to be making lights. You're going to build upon your camera compositions. You're going to decide, I want to do a night shot. I want to put an interior light. I want to add some dramatic, creepy red light from below. You are going to be starting to have some creative freedom here and make your first render. All right, so let's start with the Maya project stuff. So the big thing here is we want to make sure we have the workflow down for how we create a Maya project folder structure. What we want to do is you want to go inside of Maya, and then up here in File, we're going to come down to Project Window. Now, this is me just making the folders. I think so far from the ones I've looked at for this submission, there's a little confusion, I think, on the difference between creating a project and then setting a project. They're actually 2 different things. So when you create a project, this is what you're doing here. That is you go into the project window. You're creating the folders that you're going to use for the continuation of the time you're in the project. Setting the project is different. Setting the project is when you already have the folders. Now this is like you going into the activity the next day and just making sure Maya knows to look at those same folders. So it's almost like you're pointing Maya to the right directory. That way everything you do inside of it works. So let's do the project window first. Now, when you open this thing up, it's going to be all grayed out at the top. Yours might look a little different. It'll probably say something like new project, and it might have a different folder here or a different path. But all this should be the same. You don't have to change any of this. We're going to leave it default. So what we want to do is hit new. Okay, it says new project. Let's call this, let's do this. Let's do the character project again. I guess I'll be the first one. So we'll do character project, just like it says in the documentation. And here is where you want to choose where we're putting the project folder. And I know I've talked to you guys about this before, and I kind of mentioned it quite a bit in the videos, but it's really important to have a good organization on your laptop. And so I have a LA Film School folder, and then inside of that I have different folders for different classes that I'm involved in. And I'm sure you guys have something really similar. I've seen this actually on a lot of your computers already, just from that very first recording you did with OBS. I can tell a lot of you are already taking the time to do some of this stuff. So normally what I would do is put it in my class folder and maybe kind of figure out what activity it goes in, or just keep a very general projects folder where I put all the stuff together. I'll let you guys figure out how you want to organize it. What I'm going to do, it probably seems like a bad idea. We're using the desktop because this is going to be my dumping zone for everything I'm using just for the lecture. And I'll probably delete this when we're done. But I'm going to go to the desktop and just hit select. So it's going to go to the desktop. There's my project folder name. All this is the same. We're going to hit accept. And very anticlimactic. Well, that kind of stinks, right? Like, why did we do that? Nothing changed. I don't see any verification of mine that we did something right. That was a waste of time. So it actually did work. You don't really get any verification that what you did actually did anything, but the way to find out that you did it right is what you're going to do is just minimize Maya for a second, look at the folder where you put it. So you can either go into your documents folder and start navigating through there. Now mine's right in the desktop right here. I can also go to the desktop in the Explorer, and I can see it right there. So we're going to go in here, and this is what you should notice. That folder's here. Inside of it has all the same subfolders. All right, so we've now created our first project. Now, what we want to do is then make sure that we're putting our Maya files in the project. So let me bring in this thing again real quick. All right, so what we're going to do real quick is we've done this one. I'm not doing these two, but I think you kind of get the idea. You're basically just repeating it 2 more times. We're going to go here, and I'm going to move on to step 3. So I have one of the projects. I want to take one of the Maya files right now because they only have one project. But we're going to take one of the Maya files from 1.3, the very first one you downloaded. This is the original. Now, if you don't have the original still, because you maybe saved over it, you can just re-download it real quick from the activity. It's not going to take you very long. But just get the original, and then we're going to put the camera file we submit with 1.3 in there as well. So to do this, I'm going to open up another Explorer window, and you guys probably know about this already, but if you ever want to open up a second Explorer, if you do Control N, this will make a new window. And I do this quite a bit when I'm trying to move things between 2 different directories. All right, let's go over here. I'm going to navigate to where I've got my stuff saved. So 1.3. All right, so so there's my character file, the original. I'm just going to copy that. I'm selecting it and doing Control C, going to the scenes folder. So I'm going into this project. We're going to go to scenes, just like it says in the documentation. Control V, which is going to paste it. Just give it a second, and boom, there's one in there. Now my camera file is not in here. I have that in a different location right now. Let me find my project. There's the camera file. I'm assuming this is the camera file. Control C, Control V. Right, we're putting that. So I'm not moving it because I don't want to actually pull it from this directory because I want to leave the original there. I'm just copying and pasting it. So there's another version of that inside of here. And essentially, just like that, we have basically done this part right here. Now, again, for one of them, but you're just repeating that for the other one. Hopefully this seems like it's pretty straightforward so far. Okay, now we get to this one. So we have 2 different files that we're going to move into the assets folder of the project. Now, this one is for the vehicle project. This is the environment project. It's a little, I'm using the character one, so I don't have this. I'm just going to move them into the folder anyway and just show you where they would go. But this is for the vehicle. This is specifically for the environment project. We're getting a little weird here because I'm going to put it in the character one, which it doesn't need to go there. All right. So that is something you're downloading from the activity. Oh wait, actually, I did have that in the right activity. Wait a second. Oh my goodness. You're right. Never mind. Earlier I was saying this was in the wrong activity. This is the right activity. I just changed this stuff last month and I'm getting all my activity numbers mixed up. Forget about what I said earlier. This is the zip file we need. Everything's fine. Oh boy. I think I need some coffee. Or maybe not coffee. Alright, let's find the downloads. So that is here. So there's my 2 downloads, right? And now where these would go, if this was your vehicle project, there's your assets folder. This would go here. And I would probably do the copy pasting, like Control C, Control V. In the environment project, you're moving this to there with the same Control C, Control V. Yeah, I feel you. I still have turkey brain. It seems like every time we get to the holidays, it is like the roughest adjustment to do anything post Thanksgiving. And now we're just riding this wave out all the way through Christmas. Um, and I also got tattooed today, so I'm also kind of loopy because I've had my adrenaline going for like 5 hours getting tattooed. So that is clearly not helping my decision making at the moment. Um, but this would then go in the assets folder there. Now these are still, they're very, very similar. The OBJ file, in case you're not sure what this is called an object file. You actually can view this in your Explorer. If you double click on it, it should load a separate viewer. Oh no, not Photoshop. Well, that's fine. We're opening it in Photoshop, I guess. Didn't really want to open it in Photoshop, but that's what's happening. Sure, let's do it. Oh, okay, it's not going to do it. That's fine. That's actually for the better. There should be a way to do it actually outside of that. Not going to worry about it. Oh wait, preview might work. Let me see if this does it. Oh, geez, it's still going to Photoshop. No, abort. Windows does have a default 3D viewer, like a really primitive one. I'm not sure why mine's not picking it up. I may have to double check to see if I even have it installed. I may have like deleted it. Um, but basically, what OBJ is it is a just like think of this as being the most raw, basic version of a piece of geometry. So you know how like obviously you can have geometry and objects inside your Maya file, but this is a file specific to Maya. OBJ is the geometry that you would see in a Maya file, but because it's not something tied to Maya specifically, you can move this between other softwares. So you're actually going to be using OBJs a lot over the next couple of years when you guys are kind of going through the classes. OBJ is going to be used when you want to take something from like Maya to ZBrush, and into Painter, Maya to 3ds Max, or into Blender. So there's all these different 3D softwares that all have different purposes. Like even Nuke has a 3D system. I don't know if you guys knew that, but Nuke has 3D in it as well. But this is how you get assets into those softwares. So because a Maya file is native to Maya. Now this is going to be used as well for 2.2, but this is something we're going to import, which is kind of similar to it. It just has a couple extra features that an OBJ doesn't. All right, so enough of that stuff. We've done everything. Actually, I'm going to copy the telescope over, actually. Let me do that real quick. All right, let's just bring that in here real fast. Okay, so I'm going to move the telescope in there. I know this doesn't make sense because it's not supposed to be with this project, but just bear with me. Okay. So the only thing we're really missing here back in this activity is now that we've got them, we would now record this with OBS. So hopefully everyone's OBS is working. I know a couple of you have had some issues where it's turning black, but try to use OBS. If you have any issues, just reach out to us. And you're just going to record yourself showing me all the folders where the projects are located. I just want to see the main 3 project folders like I'm showing you. I want to see where the Maya files are located. So go in your scenes folder and then go into the assets folder to show me where these guys are. It's really just so I can verify you literally have everything in the right location. Before, I was having everybody upload these things as a zip file, and these things were taking forever to upload. Like, so I'm doing this so you guys can avoid waiting 30 minutes to have this thing upload to the LMS. So it's a little bit quicker for everybody. Um, so the last thing we're going to do is the demonstration here at the bottom. How do we set the project? This is the part that everyone's getting a little hung up on so far from the ones I've seen. So here's what we got to do. I've got Maya open. I want to now use the project, okay? So we've created it. This is now going to be us setting it. So right now, this is all 2.1. So this is all just activity 2.1 where we're going to be creating the projects, setting the projects, recording the whole process. And I'm going to get into 2.2 in actually just a second right after this. So what we want to do is we open up Maya first. It's the very first step. You're going to go up to File, and we're going to go down to Set Project. Okay, we're going to hit Set. Now, once this pops up, you're going to see a new Windows here. It says, okay, Set Project. Now, what this is asking you for is, oh, hey, Ava, welcome to the party. What this is asking for is where is the project located? And conveniently, mine's already looking at the desktop. Now you can see the folders right there. So here's what you want to do. Don't go into it. Don't click on any of these. What you actually want to, and don't click on the Maya file. That's not setting a project. You actually want to click on the root folder. So the main folder of the project, not any of the subfolders inside of it. So just select it. And I want you to notice what happens when I do this. Actually, let me show you back here real quick. Of course, it's going to show it. Shoot. Well, we'll just do it real fast. So let's do set project. You're going to do set. Just select it, hit set. What you'll notice, it's not really a good demonstration at the moment because this was already defaulting to the right area. But what you should notice is when you set it, when you go into the open menu, file open, or hit that little folder for open, it should look like it's already defaulting at your project folder. And conveniently, look what folder within the project folder it's looking at. The scenes folder. So it understands that if you're setting your project right, Maya knows that it should be looking in the scenes folder of that project because that's where you put your Maya scene files. So it's giving you the exact perfect location. Okay. So from here, you would just then hit cam or whatever one you want to open, hit open. Doesn't really matter which one you open for me for the recording. I just wanted to verify you know how to set it, and you open a Maya file. All right. And then we're in. And that's all you need for the recording. Just show me you don't have to do this for all three projects. You can just show me one of them and you're good. And just as a backup plan, because I know a couple people are going to run into some random OBS issues or you forgot something, if you run into any technical difficulties where the recording breaks, you forget something, I'm still okay with you guys taking screenshots of the different folders and trying to sort of show me the different steps, even if it means you're just uploading a dozen images of all the little steps you went through. That's our backup plan. Hopefully we can do it in a video, but if you got to do, a dozen screenshots, that's fine too. So before we go forward with anything else, and you post it to YouTube and give me the link, it's very similar to your first activity. Do you guys have any questions about this one? It's actually really not that hard once you kind of see the workflow. It's just getting you guys used to doing it because it's kind of a very foreign step compared to most softwares. But it's really pretty simple. And I basically just grade that, like to see if you guys did it all. All right. We're going to keep moving then. Yep, it really is pretty straightforward. So I'm pretty confident. You guys have been actually really good so far this month. It's like being in communication, following the directions. So I know you're all going to be fine with this thing. All right. On to 2.2. This is the big boy. So this is going to be, this one takes a little bit more time, but it's actually not too bad once we break it down into smaller steps. So let me actually delete, I'm going to make a new scene real quick because I'm going to wipe this project out. Let's get rid of that. Goodbye. Okay, what I'm going to do is bring, actually, excuse me. I'm going to use the projects I already have built, I guess. So what I want to do here is basically kind of what we're going to have you do is you're going to use this. They're called challenges. It's a series of different little steps you have to go through just to sort of train you in different parts of Maya. Now, some of these you guys actually already know. A lot of you know how to make a polyplane because you did that in the very first activity. A lot of you probably know how to rename things already. But there's some other stuff we haven't really talked about very much, like duplicating things. Um, you have no clue what display layers are, and this part gets a little confusing. I think it's just the way it's worded, so we may have to do a better video about this. But create two new display layers with a background object, and we're basically trying to make these polyplanes a background behind the character. So it's almost like you getting your photo taken, like for a school photo, and you know how they have that little, the tarp or the little plane, or, well, not the plane, but the wall behind you with like random images or whatever for your school photo book. That's basically what we're doing here. We just want something behind the character, so there's just not an empty void. That way we can still have it interact with light and in anything behind it. And then we're going to save that out once we get all that built. This is just importing some stuff in, making a background for the vehicle, rotating the wheels. And on this one, we're going to be bringing in a telescope, rotating a couple things, learning how to place it properly on the balcony. And I think I'm honestly going to try to run through all this with you guys. Probably, I think we have enough time to do that. There's going to be a blitzkrieg of information here. Hope you're ready. All right. I'm going to first off start this thing just like I did before, where I'm going to set the project. So we're going to start with what we did in the previous activity. We already got the projects built. Let's now do 2.2. We're going to go here to File, Set Project, Documents. Now I'm going to go to I'm not on the desktop anymore. We're one of the projects I've already set up. So we're going to go in here. There's my projects folder. There's the character project. So we're going to hit Set. Okay, Open. We're going to open up Cam. I don't know if this actually has the camera stuff in it, though. Mine might not have the cameras. We're going to find out. It does not. I got a little error down there, but that's fine. All right, real quickly, I'm just going to just build these cameras super quick. So let me just do this really quick because I forgot this file didn't have any of that stuff. So let's do camera. I'm basically flying through what you guys did in 1.3. All right, let's just do angled. I'm not going to look at the reference. It's somewhere. It's probably close to that. So I've got the camera in the position, got the resolution gate turned on, lock it. We're just going to double click and call this angled cam. All right, let's go back to, come on, perspective. I don't know why I keep getting that error down there. Create camera. What is this thing it keeps freaking out about? Not sure what it's doing. Oh, it's something with the plugin. All right, we'll do this. This will be front cam. Come on. I may need to reinstall Maya to fix that. All right, we'll get the front, so it's relatively close. Lock that one down. All right, so this is basically where you guys left off from 1.3. I'll make the icons a little bit bigger so you can see the cameras. They're kind of small. Okay, so I've got two cameras, and both of them are looking at different angles, right? So I'm having my perspective over here. I did a split view, so we can see this is one camera. Here's my other camera. Okay, so those are all set up and good to go. Now, what we're trying to do is create our backdrop that goes behind the character. So back here, we're going to make the polyplane, we're going to rename it, and we're going to make the display layer for it. And once I get through one of these, I'll duplicate it and show you how to do it again for the other one. Okay, so what I'm talking about is, let's say we were doing the front one, okay, and I want to make a background behind the head. So up here under poly modeling, we're going to go over here to polyplane. I'm going to click it. And you can see it's appeared in the outliner. So if you guys have the outliner open, you'll probably see that it does show up. Now the question is, where is the polyplane? And I'm sure a lot of you already know where it is because you saw this happen with the camera. It's under this guy, right? So we're going to move it out. Let's put it back here. Let's move it up. Now it's really tiny, and you can kind of see it popping up behind the head over here. So we're going to use R. I'm going to click in the middle and just drag to scale it up. You can see all the scale values are going up over here on the side. Now what we want to do for this is hit E. We're going to do rotation. I'm just going to turn it. Now if you have OCD issues like I do, you could totally go over here and just say, all right, well, if I'm rotating it this way towards the camera, it looks like it should be 90 degrees on X. So we're just going to do 90. Now we're going to use W. I'm going to try to center it. So what I'm doing is I'm moving it here, but I'm watching what's happening through the camera. So we're going to center it. R. Scale it out. Scale it up. And I just only need to get it big enough to the point where it fills right beyond the resolution gate. That's all we're looking for. Okay, and that should work pretty well. Now, the one thing I'll say is when you do this, later in the month, we're going to be adding lights in here. So because we're going to be adding lights around the character, I would recommend that you guys push this back a bit more, because a big part of lighting is doing like backlighting, where you get kind of like a dark silhouette or like a rim light that hits the shoulder. If the wall is too close, you're going to have a really hard time doing some of the lights later. So let's just push this back, give it a gap, R, so I can drag to go up. So it's a bigger wall farther away. That's going to give us a little bit more freedom later once we set up the lights. Not a big deal for the grade for this submission, but if you guys don't do that, I'll probably mention it in your critique, like, hey, we should move it back, just because in the future it's going to cause an issue. All right. Now the only thing I haven't done is name it, and I haven't made the display layer. Okay, so it's called pplane1. It's not the best name. We're going to double click, and I think it was called, was it character BG front? I'm already forgetting what I wanted it called. Yeah, so this is going to be character BG front. So there we go. Now I'm going to duplicate it actually before I do the display layer. So I'm just going to hit Control D like this, W. I'm just going to move it off to the side for a second, so just so you can see both of them. Let's just quickly rename this to the other one. Oh, sorry, I just kind of zipped through that. To duplicate, if you didn't catch that, it's Control D. Control D as in duplicate. It's also right there. You can see the hotkey for it. So that's just going to make a copy of whatever you're selecting. So we're going to click on this, and now that it's a duplicate, we're going to go and call this BG angled. Okay, so I have both of these guys just hanging out. I just moved this over so you can see it. Now this one, if you're looking from the angled camera, needs to look like it's a wall behind this one. Now you can see there's a little bit of overlap where this one's showing up. I'm just going to hide this one temporarily. So if you ever want to just like hide something, so it's to get it out of the way so you don't see it, it's H on your keyboard, H for hide. So if I click on this plane and hit H, see how it disappears? Now notice how it's not gone though, because it's a dark gray in the outliner. It's still here, you just can't see it. It's hidden. So while that's gone, we're going to take this, let's move it over. I'm going to rotate it. Now see how it's at an angle? I could scale it up, right, and do this, and it's still filling the frame technically, but doesn't that seem like a very odd angle for the background behind the character when the camera is looking this way? So I think what's going to be a better idea is we're going to hit E. Let's just rotate it so it's still facing towards us, right? R, make it bigger. Let's also bring it up just a little bit because this one was kind of low. And if I wanted to, like if you notice it's a little crooked based on your camera, you can like tilt it forward, you can push it back. It's all going to be different for everyone, because obviously no one's camera is in the same spot. We're all a little bit different there. But now we have the angled one, right? It has a pretty good distance, just like the front. So this is where we get into the display layers, and you're going to see why we're showing you this. So let me just turn the front on for a second, okay? So the reason why I'm showing you guys display layers is because you can see visually these really shouldn't be on at the same time, right? Because if you're in the angled camera, this is now blocking it. And I don't know if it shows up from the front, but this one's not really affecting the front, but there's still a weird overlap on this guy. So we want to be able to turn these on and off very quickly. That's what display layers are good at. So instead of us using hide to constantly hide these in the outliner, we're going to use this little section in the bottom right. And so a bunch of you actually probably remember seeing this from the very first activity, because this isn't the same section where you access the channel box. So when you look at the little tab over here where it says channel box, this part is the channel box, like all this stuff. The other part right below where it says layer editor, it's actually referring to this piece down here. This is the layer editor. So what I'm going to do is click on our first background, and we have all these buttons under the display layers. This is just going to move the layer up and down. Think of it kind of like flipping the order of your layers in Photoshop. This is going to be to create a new layer that's empty. This is making a new layer with a selected object. So we're going to do that one. So I'm going to have this selected. We're going to hit the button on the right, click, and you can see that something has appeared. It's called layer 1. Now I want to show you what this is doing. So even if I don't do anything else at this point, if you simply click on that little V right there, look what that's doing. This is the visibility button for whatever is on that layer. So now, instead of me going through here looking for something, I'm creating something over here to make it easier for me to turn something on and off. It's just a little shortcut. Now, there's a couple things we can do to make this even more organized. It's called layer 1. That's not very helpful. Let's think about what we probably should name it. Well, we're going to double click. So I'm just going to double click on the layer. That's going to pop up a little thing to say, what should the name be? We can change the color of objects on the layer to see it a little bit easier. I might do that too, actually. Let's do, how about background front layer, save, right? So even if we didn't, like if we gave this file to someone else, they would probably understand what this is just by reading the name, like, oh, it's the background for the front layer camera. But that makes sense. Now I'm also going to double click and change the color. Let's do green. I'm gonna hit save. So this adds a little color to it, and it actually is a little more than that, because remember how there's like that wireframe and shaded mode, like 4 and 5 key, and a lot of you remember hitting those buttons up here at the top. When I go to 4, look what happens. It's green, right? Because when you color code something, you're actually changing the wireframe color as well. So if you have a lot of layers and a bunch of things are assigned to them, this thing's gonna look like a Christmas tree. You're gonna have colors all over this thing. Okay, so we're just going to go back to 5, which is shaded mode, or hit that button. I'm going to turn this off. Now I'm going to do this one as well, but I'm going to do this a little differently because I want to show you that there's multiple ways to set this up. Let's say that you hit this button here, not the one to the side. Okay, so I'm going to hit this one, and it looks very similar, right? We made a layer. I'm going to hit V. See how nothing's happening? Because this is not going to make a layer with whatever you're selecting. This is just making an empty layer. Nothing is on it. So when we turn the visibility off, nothing is happening. So how do we add something to this layer? You have a couple options. If you want, you could simply, when you realize this happened, you could be like, oh, this is not good. Right click on the layer, delete layer, do it again with the other button. But because we're going to do it a little bit differently, we're not going to worry about that. I'm going to click on the object, right click on the layer, and we're going to pick add selected objects. So I'm adding whatever I'm selecting, and it could be multiple things to that layer. We click, okay, and now when I do V, see how it's on there? And it's very easy to remove something. So if you accidentally had too many things on the layer, like let's say you had the head on there by mistake, I'll add this to it. So I'm adding the head, and you're like, oh crap, I did not realize that the character head was on there. Well, that's easy. You just click on it, right click on the layer, remove object, right? And now it's not there. Now I'm just back to the background. So we're going to double click. Let's rename it real quick. BG angled layer. And we'll do maybe red for this one. And so if I go to wireframe, you can see it's red. You can see we have both planes. And so the reason why you're doing this is now later on, when you get to the point when you're doing your light setups in week 3, depending on which camera you're using, you are going to toggle the appropriate background that goes with the camera. So it's just basically you're just creating this really cool little organizational setup to help you out later when you start, getting into like different cameras and different shots, you're controlling what's visible. These are very, very powerful when you get into like much more complicated scenes, because like let's say you had a camera going through like an environment, like a fly through. If you know that you're going past something that you're never going to see, like if you rush by a bunch of tables, like in a warehouse, and then you start going down a hallway, you could actually start hiding things past a certain frame when they're no longer seen by the camera. So it's almost like you're hiding stuff behind you once you get past that point. So a lot of really interesting ways to use these things. Do you guys feel pretty good about that? I mean, this is exactly what I'm looking for that part of the 2.1. All right. And I would save it at this point. This would be, I think we save it as challenge. So once we get to that point right there, we save it out as character challenge, my binary, and we're done. Okay. All right. Do let's do the vehicle one real quick. Yeah, we'll zip through that one. All right. So I'm not going to save it because I've already got that done, but we're going to do file, set project. Okay, there's my vehicle project. Set, open. See us in the vehicle project. Now we're going to go down to, I hope this one has the cameras. It does. Awesome. All right, I got the cameras in this one. So I've got my two cameras here. Side, there's front. Perfect. All right. So this one is actually probably a little easier. There's one thing that gets overlooked a lot with this one. So we're going to get rid of the polyplane under the vehicle. We're bringing in that OBJ file. So we're basically creating a new background behind the vehicle. We're going to make sure it's not intersecting or it's not, the wheels aren't cutting through it. And this part right here gets missed a lot. You'll need to adjust each camera's far clip plane so the background isn't being cut off in the distance. That is super important. This is probably the single most missed thing in the entire submission. But we're going to show you how to do that. So let's just take this ground geometry. You can hide it or delete it. It just doesn't need to be here. We're going to go to File, and we're going to import in that OBJ file that we did in 2.1. So that's already in the project, right? Because that's that thing you're putting in the assets folder. And I actually, even though I'm saying that, I don't know if mine is in the assets folder in this one. Okay, it's not. Where did I put it? I bet it's not even in here. All right, we're going to back up. Clearly, I didn't put it in the assets folder, even though I should have. Let's just do it this way. We know where it's at. So I'm going to click on the OBJ. So file import, just find your OBJ file. It's probably in the assets folder. Mine isn't, but we're going to select it and hit import. Now you'll notice that as soon as you do that, something pops up right here called vehicle BG : mesh. This is the background. This is going to be our new environment for the vehicle. Now I want you to notice something really interesting happening of this environment because the vehicle's massive compared to the grid. It's basically getting cut off because the camera can only see so far. Now, if I click on the perspective camera, because that's the one we're looking through right here, let's go to the attribute editor. And I'm sure a lot of you, well, for those of you that have got your grade for 1.3, you probably remember me talking about this thing. I mentioned it in quite a few videos. It's something called near clip plane. And I have a video that talks about this stuff in 1.3 as well. So this is determining how close something can get to the camera before it's cut out. The issue we're seeing right now is the other one below it called far clip plane. So this means the camera can only see 10,000 my units. The line you're seeing in the distance, that is exactly 10,000 units from our camera that we're looking through right here. So as I back up more, it just gets cut off. Eventually the vehicle disappears and we can't see anything. So all you need to do is go to your camera that has the issue, go to far clip, add a 0, hit enter, immediately fixed. And now you can go way farther back before it ever cuts it out. We just want to make sure that we're inside of this punch bowl here with all the cameras, that you're not getting any issues with that disappearing. Now, if I look at and I'm just moving the middle pane right here just to kind of scale out the viewport so you can see it. But see how this one is still disappearing? Because it's a per camera setting. And so if you go to the front cam, because we're looking through the front cam, see how it's the same thing over here in the attribute editor? We have to change it for every camera. So click, 0, enter. It's fixed. Side, right? There's our side. Far clip, 0, enter. Boom. So we're just doing that for each one to ensure it can see the background properly. And it actually goes beyond just the issue in the viewport, because eventually when you start doing renders with 2.3, which I'm hoping we have time to talk about, we may not actually make it to 2.3. When you start doing your renders, it will actually cut out the background and there's going to look like there's a hole in your image. Now, the only thing we haven't done is the tire rotation. So we're going to go back in here again. So we've done all this. We need to find the group that controls the rotation of the front tires. We're going to rotate them by either -15 or +15 degrees. We're just trying to give them a very slight turn. So we're back out of here. This is the first time you guys are going to be exposed to groups. And I'm going to show you groups again in the environment project in just a second. But groups are awesome. They're very, very powerful once you know how to use them. So if you look over here in the outliner, and some of you actually probably picked up on this even when you were going through your files earlier, like in 1.3, did you guys notice how the little icon right here looks different? Like if you have a, let's say we had like a cube, or even the background, like this is a polygon icon, right? It looks a certain way. But for some reason, this thing has a completely different looking icon. And there's a little plus symbol next to it. So what is that? This is a group. Think of it kind of like a container, and there's a bunch of stuff inside of it. So you can organize things together. So that way, even though the car is technically made up of all these different pieces, because it's grouped together, this is what allows us to move the vehicle as one piece. And the wheels are also grouped in their own sections. So you can rotate a wheel, and the tire, the lug nuts, the rim, all that stuff goes together. So what we want to do is hit the plus next to main vehicle group, and you'll see we have all of our different groups that make up the vehicle. We've got the vehicle body, decals. The FP is front passenger, so front passenger wheel, front driver, back passenger. Okay, so we want to just move the two fronts. So we're going to click on front passenger wheel group, and you're going to hit E, and you're going to rotate it. So I already have the pivot point set up. It's in the right location, so it's going to be pivoting right behind here. And let me go to the channel box so you can kind of see what happens to rotation. Now I'm going to rotate it, and it doesn't really matter right now which way you turn it, either -15 or +15. Let's actually look through the front camera so it's a little easier to see this. So if I do +15, it's this way. -15 is just turned back that way. I kind of like the look of going positive so you can see more of the inside of the rim. So if you want to get a very exact rotation, just click on the group, go over here to the channel box, just type in 15 right on rotate Y. And that's putting it on exactly 15 degrees. Now, the one thing you want to be careful about is because you can still rotate each piece separately. You don't want to rotate just see how the tire breaks when you do it. If you have just the rim, this is just turning in place, but nothing else is going with it. So you really do want to be careful about that and make sure you are doing the group. Now there's a shortcut to actually get to the group, because you saw over here how I was clicking through all these little plus symbols and just digging deeper and deeper into this little hierarchy. You don't always have to do that. There's a trick I do a lot in my critique videos where if you click on an object and you know this is in a group, instead of digging through here, just select something and on your keyboard hit the up arrow. The up arrow is going to hop up to whatever is above the geometry, and it's probably going to be a group. And in this case, by me hitting this or the rim or really any of these guys and hitting up, it's navigating up to the group. And then I can simply do this and rotate it the same amount. We'll do 15 degrees. All right, so now we've got this turned, and we have the perfect angle for both wheels. Okay. And if you ever like get into animation with this thing, you could do rotate X, and this would be how you animate the vehicle driving forward. So we'd just be keyframing that guy right there. All right, and that's the vehicle. So then we'd save that out as vehicle challenge, and we're done. All right. Any questions about that one? Again, it's not too bad, I think, when you're seeing it in the video. I do have videos in the playlist that go into way more detail about each specific thing, like how groups work, how display layers work, duplicating objects. I'm just kind of giving you guys the crash course right here, going through the activity. Um, so the environment one, I'm actually not going to do that with you guys. I'm going to let you guys figure that one out. But the environment one is really, really similar. Uh, you're basically just repeating this again with the environment project. You're bringing in the telescope this time. Yes, this is all going to be recorded, correct. So I'm going to send you guys the link for this thing probably early tomorrow morning. So you're going to bring in the telescope. This has a bunch of groups in it. So you're going to rotate, tilt the telescope. You're going to put it on the balcony. You're just basically, based on your camera that you guys set up before, because you're all looking at the balcony from different angles, you're just positioning it on the balcony, getting the scale adjusted, making sure it's sitting on the floor, it's not floating, it's not crossing through it. And then you're just going to tilt up the telescope so it's kind of pointing towards the sky. And you'll probably rotate it a little bit to get some really nice composition based on whatever camera you kind of prefer. And then you're just saving that out, and that's going to be your turn in for the environment project. So really, really similar to the vehicle. You're just doing it again with a different prop. So actually, and you're just turning all that in, by the way, just your Maya files. So you make a folder, put those 3 Maya files in there. I'll open them up, check them out, and just see how you did. And I'm going to skip the environment one actually because I do want to show you this because we do have about like 10 or 15 minutes or so before I get to end the meeting. So 2.3 is the other activity. This is going to be all about RenderMan. So this is a big moment for you guys in the month. This is going to be installing a plugin that we're going to use to create all of our images. So the documentation will walk you through it. It's fairly straightforward. They actually just released a new version of RenderMan. So I think in here it probably says 22.3 in the image, but when you guys download it, it's probably going to be RenderMan 23 because they literally just released this thing a couple days ago. So what RenderMan is going to allow us to do is make images with what we've got. You're not going to be making lights or doing anything too complicated. It's really just you kind of verifying that you have RenderMan working and you know how to produce super simple images in your project. And I have all the lights set up for you except for this one, which I have a video for. Okay, so I do want to show you RenderMan. We're going to do it actually with the vehicle right here, and I think I've got a file that already has this. Let's see. I think it's this one. Yep, okay. So I want to show you what RenderMan looks like. In your project, there is, I think mine looks a little different right now for some reason. I think in your scene, if you look at the vehicle project, all these lights are probably not visible. They're on a display layer. I don't remember what I have it called in your scene. I think it might be called like Pixar lights. But you probably noticed in your outliner, these guys were already in there, or something that looked kind of like this, like a bunch of little names like top light, rim light, backlight, front light. Uh, until you get RenderBand installed as a plugin, these aren't going to do anything. But as soon as you go through the process of like registering on RenderBand's forum, downloading the plugin, getting the plugin to work inside of Maya to the plugin manager, what you're going to see is that there's a new shelf up here that has all these buttons. These come with the RenderMan plugin. This is how we make our images. So basically what RenderMan does is it's going to be used to calculate lighting, materials, um, the camera's position, all the fun stuff that makes the image pretty is basically what RenderMan's going to try doing. So for example, if I wanted to do, let's do this one right here. I'm kind of skipping ahead to one of the last renders you're going to do with 2.3. We're going to do this Pixar light render. So in your file on the display layers, uh, you're going to, yeah, you guys will have already made the environment light from the previous step. I have a video that shows you how to do this. So we're going to make sure we don't have the environment light visible. We'll just pretend we've already done that. We're going to turn on the visibility of the Pixar lights layer. It's going to unhide a couple different Pixar rectangular lights, which is currently what I have in the project. And they're already set up to illuminate the scene. You do not need to modify, move them. You don't have to change the settings. As long as they're visible and you have RenderMan working, it should work immediately, and you're going to see something like this. So if I have this on, this is my Pixar lights layer. I just didn't name it. Okay, so it's here. There's all the lights. They're already set up. What you're going to do is in the viewport right here, you're going to hit this little blue R in the corner. This is not currently in your scene, but when you get RenderMan running, this will appear. All these guys are part of RenderMan. So I'm going to hit it. Just wait a second. And you can see what's happening is it's turning the viewport to a basically a rendering tool. It's no longer, I mean, you can still click on stuff in here and select different parts of the vehicle, even though it's not showing up. I am clicking on it. So you're still able to click on things. You can still move the camera if you want. I think mine's actually locked at the moment, but it's producing an image. If I move a light, it will update. So you don't need to do this, but if you wanted to go to a light and like on this one in the back, that's that orange color. If I hit W and move it, watch what happens over here. Just going to slide that down and boom, it updates. Now we're getting a light really close to the front. If I click on a light and go to the attribute editor, so just give it a second, it needs to refresh because I just opened this thing up. Click on the same light. I could say, let me just kind of kill this thing for a second. I'm going to make the color something pretty wild here. We'll do like a green. It updates the green, right? And you can, you don't need to do this, but you can basically kind of move things around and it will try to update the image immediately based on whatever you're doing with the lights. Colors will change, the position of the lights change, you get different shadows. At this point, you're basically turning into a photographer. Like you're at the location, you're at your photo shoot, you are designing your shot and just making sure that everything works. Later in the month, you're going to be creating your own lights and picking your own colors, matching reference images, doing different times a day. You're not really supposed to do that for this activity. This is just verifying you know how to make the image work. Later, you're going to have all this freedom to kind of design your own colors and your own setups. This is just kind of the beginning here. Now, a couple of cool things with RenderMan as well is there's a lot of ways to make this much faster inside of the viewport. So one thing I would recommend you guys do once you get RenderMan running is there's a little button here on the shelf. If I click it, where it has these percentages. So I didn't actually have this in any of my videos because I didn't really actually realize how important this was going to be when I started doing my first sets of recordings. But this is a percentage of how much resolution it uses in the viewport. Now, the reason this is important is because you know how on with our Alienware laptops, most of us are using a 4K display. And I'm willing to bet most of you haven't changed that yet. You're still set to that really intense 4K resolution, right? So because this render is based on the resolution of your monitor, because we're all using a 4K display, the time it can take to render this can be really long because this is a big chunk of the screen. So if I put this to 100%, which is the default, because you guys are going to be set to 100. Let me just turn that off for a second and do this. This is what it defaults to, by the way. This will be happening to you. I'm going to hit render, but I want you to see the speed. Now, it does have, you guys can probably tell that it does have more detail. See how it's a little bit sharper? That's because this is a way denser, more detailed image because we're using that true 4K resolution. The reason why you don't necessarily want to do this is because the whole point of rendering the viewport is for speed. You're trying to get quick feedback of like, is the light in the right spot? Is it the right color? Is the render working? Is the geometry in the right position? What does the composition look like? If this thing is rendering at a 4K resolution detail like this, it's going to take you forever just to move things around and make this efficient. So I'm just going to hit the blue R to turn it off again. By us keeping it at 50%, and you could go even lower if you wanted to. I could do 25%. It's not going to look good, but look how much faster it is. It's way quicker, but this means when you move stuff around, you are getting way faster results on what's happening with the lighting information, right? It's all updating way quicker than it used to be. And that's really like one of the important things you guys are going to start getting used to as you get more into these software programs. It's not always about make the image the coolest way possible, make it the most detailed, add more resolution, add more geometry. There's a balance between efficiency and quality, and you're going to be constantly riding that fine line and knowing right now I need it to be quick because so I can just quickly get through something. Later at the end, when I know it looks good, then I'll bump up the quality to something better. So eventually, once you guys kind of get all this set and you feel like everything's working, instead of using the image, instead of using the viewport, you guys are going to use the blue R on the shelf. So the viewport is for all your test renders, just to make sure it works. This guy is your final render. If I hit this blue R on the render band shelf, just give it a second, it's going to launch the image tool. This is where it does the final image. It's a separate application, so you can see it shows up on your taskbar down here. And yours is going to look a little different when you get in here because there's a couple other things that are going to be open that I currently don't have visible. But I have a video that talks about all this. This is essentially just going through and rendering the image. You can see down here there's a percentage, and look at where we are in the image. We're at 2%, and it's going to keep sampling and adding more and more detail every wipe, and that percentage is going to go up really slow. And eventually, it'll finish, and you can save out the render. So this will take a bit to let it finish. So you want to give yourself a little time to do this project. I'd say every image maybe takes 10 minutes. So there's a little bit of a waiting game you guys are going to go through for the turn-in for this one. Okay, but from here you just click. There's a couple things you do up here just to make sure it saves right. But you're basically, when it's finished, you're just turning on burn and mapping on save, which I talk about in the video, and you export the file out as a PNG, and that saves the image. And if you look at your desktop, wherever you choose to save it, it'll look just like this. I don't want to save it yet because it's not done. It's going to be kind of grainy. Like the quality is not very good at the moment, but it'll keep getting better the longer I let this thing go. So let me just hit cancel on that. We'll get out of the image tool. But this is usually one of the things that people like the most about this class. As soon as they get to the point where they're like, oh crap, like I'm making my own images, I'm making my own lights, that's when this whole thing gets really exciting. It's not just you staring at that same gray color. That's very boring. We want to see bright, fun colors, new materials. And just to kind of show you like one more thing before we get out of here, I do want to show you something that you're going to do in Shading and Lighting 2. I'll be working with you guys in that class as well. You can also, in the other Shading and Lighting class, make your own materials. Meaning, if I click on like the window, and if I go into this thing called the preset browser that comes with RenderMan, check this out. This are all presets that you can pick from, different types of materials that you can just assign to different parts of your scene. So like if this is going to be a glass window, if I come down to glass, let's do clear glass. I'm just going to click in the window, right click in the material and do import and assign to selected. So it's going to basically import this material and assign it to the window because I have it selected. Just watch what happens to the render. It's now glass. You can see it reflecting the lights. You can see through it. There's not really any interior. I don't think there's even chairs in here, but it's trying to look through the glass and draw the inside of the vehicle. I could also make my own material. I could click on the paint. Actually, let's go to the metal. We're going to add this. Let's find metal, and we're going to do chrome. Right click, import and assign to selected, and Boom, chrome. We got a chrome front. And there's obviously not a preset for every single material on the planet, but I think you guys kind of get the idea. There are quite a few in here overall, and there's way more on RenderMan's site. This is just the beginning of you guys seeing it. And these are also really good starting points for other materials when you want to start customizing stuff. So if I did like a car paint, I could do that really quick by making it myself. If I click on the car body, I'm going to go up here and make a Pixar surface material from scratch. The Pixar surface material, this little button, this is what's in the preset browser, but this is like you making the material and there's nothing on it, and you're sort of customizing what it looks like. So I'm just going to do that super quick. Pixar surface. All right, guys, I'll let you tell me here, what paint color do you want this car to have? I'll let you guys choose our fate. We got this neat green light back there. What are you feeling? I'll even make it bigger so we get a little bit more of that green spill back there. Let's kind of turn it. We're going mint green against green. If we do mint green, what I'm going to do is change the light in the back so it doesn't all blend together. So let's do mint green. I'm going to change the light to a good complement to that might be, we're going to go pink. This is going to be a really interesting render here. So we're going to go make a pink light. I'm going to click on the car body. I'm going to go over here to the attribute editor so I can see my material. And I could rename it to something if I wanted to, but I'm going to go to the color. We're going to pick whatever we want. It's gray. We're going to do that same. Let's do like a mint green. We're going to go a little more there. Okay, well, that's green, all right. Yes. Now this is just the base color. There's a lot of things that go into car paint. There's reflections, there's a clear coat. So we're going to do that real quick. I got the base color. I want to make it shiny. So we're going to let me darken this just a little bit so you can see what's going on. Bring that down. Okay, we'll brighten it later. I'm going to go to my specularity, and I'm not going to get too deep into what all this means at the moment. I talk about it in the second class, but I'm going to make it a little bit more reflective. Let's give the paint a little roughness. You can kind of see some little highlights starting to show up on it, so it's not as flat. We are getting a very crazy watermelon look, actually. I think this is the best decision we've ever made, to be honest with you. Let's get the clear coat on here. So I'm going to come down to clear coat. This one I'm going to do some little trick. I'm going to put it to physical, which kind of changes the way it works with some other settings. And I'm going to boost the edge color up, and we should see, yep, look at we're starting to get a little bit of a shine on it. I'm going to make the clear coat a little bit thicker. Yes, we're starting to get that car paint. All those little shiny details are starting to appear. And we'll make the roughness a little higher so it's not too perfect. But it's definitely working. You can probably see it a little easier if I move the light because it'll catch a highlight from it. Let me see if I can get this to catch a highlight. It probably needs to be, yeah, moving the light. You'll see it reflect off the surface if it's in the right spot. Where are you, light? I know you're here. I should see it on the fender somewhere. There it is. That's the light back here. So it's bouncing and hitting the light off to the side. But it's crazy, right? This is basically the beginning of you guys creating your own renders with lights, materials. I went way deep into it apparently because I'm getting into stuff in the second shading and lighting class. But I think it's really important for you guys to see this and get excited because this is why you're here. Like we're all here to be seeing fun stuff like this. And RenderMan's an amazing tool. There's so many great things it can do. We could make these light sources. I could do light fog, so we kind of get these cool shafts of light from the headlights. It's pretty awesome. All right, so I think that's it, guys. We covered a lot in an hour. This might be my new record of amount of material covered in 60 minutes. We went through practically 3 activities here and a little bit in the second class. So cool. Let's kind of call the meeting and appreciate everybody hanging out with me. Hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. I will have the recording to you guys tomorrow morning after it's finished encoding on YouTube. And then hopefully tomorrow I can finally wrap up the grades and get caught up. I'm so close. All right. Everyone have a good night, and I will either catch up with you tomorrow or next week.